Good morning. How are you doing? You all okay? Yeah? You ready to go? Yeah? Also, if we're honouring people, they would never want this themselves, but Tony, Ford and Beth also helped someone move the other day. So they were just coming off their own back to just help people move. And so why don't we give them a little round of applause? And don't worry, you've not lost your reward in heaven, because I was the one that gave that up. But no, it's good to have a community that honours people and when people are involved. But, are you okay? You ready to go? Yes? Now, who likes having their photo taken? No. No. See, Esther doesn't mind it. I'm not so keen on it. When we were on holiday, there was this lovely gentleman called Roberto, okay? He was a photographer in the hotel. He had a gift. Okay, I don't really like having my photo taken, but on the way down to dinner, this man, he does not give you a choice. You're walking down, so you've already put your clothes on, and in your mind, you're just thinking, oh, I'm just going to the evening meal. It'll be lovely. And I remember on either the first or the second night, we're walking down the road to the restaurant, and I just see this chap. He's taking some pictures in the background, and Esther says, "Oh, let's get a picture just ourselves on the phone." And she must have saw him and thought, "Oh, we need a picture. Let's just do it on the phone." So she stands him next to a bush, a nice bush, and then we take a photo. Who sees us? Roberto. He comes straight over, like, photo. I can't do the accent. I'm just thinking, let's get a photo. Get everyone in. Stand together. And he's there with his camera, and I'm thinking, oh. Might as well just do it. Better just do it if we're right here. And you have that moment, when you're feeling a little uncomfortable, a little awkward. But he gets us all together, and he just starts taking photos, snapping us, snap, click. It's like, you go, stand there, put your arm here, you do that. Click. And Esther's loving it. It's great. She's thinking, I would never have got him to agree to a photo shoot. This is fantastic, but we've got one anyway. And then he says, this is why it's quite clever. They say, okay, now that we've finished the photos, just go to the booth at reception whenever you want, have a look at them. If you want them, you can buy them. If you don't, you don't. And it was quite quick and painless, really, wasn't it, Ken? He was involved. Ken was there. He was giving his best smile. However, the story goes on. So later, we go and have a look at these photos the next day, and we look at some, and they're all right. And, we get a couple. There's one where we're giving Judah a little throw. Maybe you saw it online. We're just kind of like throwing him in the air a little bit in a safe way, because we're very safe with him, in a safe way. And it was nice. Then Jane goes a little later on. She comes back and she says, I didn't know you had a photo shoot at the beach. And we go, no, we didn't have a photo shoot at the beach. What do you mean? She says, well, I went down there and there's a photo of you, Judah and Esther on the beach. And you're just throwing them up into the air. And I'm thinking, what? We never really got an answer, but I'm assuming, do you think there was a bit of Photoshop going on? Bit of Photoshop, because when we went down there actually to get our photos, there was some lovely romantic ones on the wall. And I remember thinking at the time, I thought, something just seems a little bit off on these photos, and makes you think, I think they did the same thing with us, There'll be people down there now in Menorca, and they'll be looking around. Someone will be trying to flog them some photos saying, look, and this couple had an amazing beachside photo. Look, they loved it. But obviously, I don't really mind. But it gives you the perspective that sometimes you have to just look carefully at things, don't you? You need to look twice. So, I've titled this, What Do You See? Does anyone like getting their eyes tested? No. No, that's got to be unanimous. I don't think I've met anyone that does. Does anyone like it? No. See, we're not going to test everyone, but we could go down line by line and we could measure everyone's eyes right now, but we won't do that. What do you see? Now, I want to read this passage of Scripture out. It's a little bit heavy to start with, but don't worry, we'll unpack it, we'll go through it. And this is from a famous discourse. This is between Jesus and his disciples. So he's been teaching lots of people, but now he's sharing something with his disciples in a more intimate way. So this is from Matthew 25, 31, 40. It is titled, don't let it put you off, it is titled, The Final Judgment. But there is a lot of good, encouraging things we can get out of this. I'm going to read it out. If you have a Bible, feel free to follow along. when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all his angels with him, then he will sit on his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate people from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will place the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." So let's just stop there. Let's picture it. He's talking to his disciples, and he's creating this imagery, this imagery of what is to come. He says, in the last days, on the final judgment, what you will see is God will gather everyone up, and he will say to people, "For I was hungry, you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." And the king will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers, you did it to me." I got lost there. They say to them, "What do you mean? When did we do this to you, Jesus? When did we do this for you?" And he says, "What you did for the least of these, you did it to me." So those who were hungry and they fed, he says, you did it for me. Those who were lonely and you visited them, you did it for me. It's quite an interesting passage, isn't it? So he's showing what happens in the final judgment, separates people, and he says, look, those who were lonely and you visited, you did it for me. Interesting, isn't it? So the first point I think we've got to get out of this is we've got to learn to recognize Jesus in unexpected places. You know, sometimes we all want the big, fire in the sky moment. Jesus, move in my life. But do we see him in the unexpected places? You know, this week as I was online, as I often can be, I was on Reddit on a Christian thread, and I was reading through some different things, and I just had to stop at one, and it made me smile, and I thought, friend, we can all be guilty of that. And he put a thread up, and he said, look, I've been praying really hard lately. I've been praying that Jesus will give me an opportunity to just do some good for people, to just be his hands and feet in his kingdom. Those are my words, but you know, that was the sentiment, to just do something good for someone else. Like, God, just use me. And he said, so he was on his way to work one morning in the week. He'd just finished praying, he's going to work, and he sees someone just out on the road, car's broken down with a flat tire, and this guy's just waving people down. And he thinks to himself, man, this person needs help, I suppose, but I'm running late for work. He thinks, I would love to help him, but I have not got the time. So he keeps driving on, and what do you think happens? It just hits him. That moment, he thinks, you can't believe it, can you? I've been praying all week. I've been praying in this season for a chance to just help someone, be selfless. And then that moment comes. And the pressures of life won in that moment. But you know what? At least the guy recognized that. Does that make sense? At least he can now look back, and maybe for next time he can be more prepared. But couldn't that be all of us? You know, how many of us can be praying for something, and then actually when that day comes, we're not prepared for the prayer we've been praying? Does that make sense? You know, we pray and we fast and we go into these things, but we need to prepare our hearts for when God gives us those things. Imagine if God just gave you everything you prayed for right now, the desires of your heart. Would we even be able to handle that? Yeah? Now, I don't know if you noticed, guys, there's a few people away on holiday right now, so let's give some energy. Does that make sense? Yes? Yes, thank you. Excellent. But we can all be guilty of that. Now, point 2 is that compassion is active. It's not passive. And God sees what they don't see. Sir Francis of Assisi, he said this, "For it is in giving that we receive." It's a big statement. One that sounds good, doesn't it? But the reality of it, again, it can be very difficult to get into that. It is in giving that we receive. Why is it? It's a spiritual principle, isn't it? Why is it that is found all the way through the Bible in different forms, different stories, different parables, but that is a spiritual principle that we cannot get away from. That actually, it is in giving, it is in humility that we actually find strength. It is in giving that we actually receive. Have you ever noticed that? Just the whole way through the Bible, it is trying to create a culture that does not make sense to the natural eyes. Because just like this chap online, God bless him, he's probably got no idea I'm talking about his little Reddit post in a sermon somewhere. But just like this guy online, it is so easy to just give into the natural mind. The natural mind, if we're being honest, it can be very insecure. When things aren't going our way, we have a tendency, we want to claw, restrict, and pull back. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah. If you're feeling a bit insecure, something's not going your way, the natural reaction is to just bring that in, keep it close. I've got to protect that. I've got to protect what's mine. No one else is going to. When the Bible says it is in an open hand that you find freedom. And if I'm being honest, I think it probably takes a good long time to master that, to develop that posture, to actually have that as your default reaction. It's very difficult, but we see it all throughout the Bible. And of course, in this actual section, what Jesus is saying, it is so important because he's saying what you did for them, you did for me. Our faith becomes alive when we move from empathy to action. What practical steps can we take right now to live out our faith? We could have that. We could ask that question right now. But then would we be prepared in the week for it? I remember when I was watching someone preach and speak on kind of this topic, but they said there's so much need in the world that the problem is we can become very cut off from it because it's not personal to us. You know, we could put on the news right now and I'm sure we would be overwhelmed, we would be bombarded by some kind of need, yeah? Now what this guy was saying is, when he was dealing with this struggle himself, he thought, I want to develop a heart that cares, because what he'd noticed in himself was he'd been desensitized to some things, and when he looked at what was going on around in the world, it did not stir his heart. And he thought, there's something wrong there. My heart has grown cold. It's become a heart of stone. So how can I fix that? And what he did is himself and a team, it was a bigger church, they had lots of resources, but he started to visit some of the most needy places in the world. He immersed himself in it for a season. And what he found is that when you see it directly, you feel responsible for it. He said when he was watching something in a distance on TV, it didn't move him. But when he was in there, in it, learning and looking and talking to the people behind the struggle, he said, when I saw it, I felt responsibility for it. And it shows in some way we have to, I guess, expose ourselves to things that are going on. Now, I know it's easier said than done, and we've got great opportunities. We've got Debbie in the room, and she works for Africa Inland Mission. So look, I can't really say too much, but her job will involve going to these different places, to seeing things that's taking place, things that the rest of us might feel quite privileged and sheltered by. But when you see it, you feel responsible for it. So maybe some of our energy in this next season or this next year is just about creating some circles where we can be exposed to more things that's going on, because what we do for them, we've done for Jesus. Does that make sense? Yeah? Now, second with that is that God sees you. I don't know about how you guys can feel, but sometimes, some seasons, you can just think, God, are you in this? God, are you seeing what's going on? Have you ever had that prayer? God, are you seeing this? And again, a recurrent principle throughout the Bible is He is seeing it. Even if it does not feel like it, he is seeing it. You know, me and Esther recently, sometimes you're just having one of those nights and you're watching just something on TV, and it's a show that is quite popular, just one of those reality TV shows, and really there's no spiritual value there, so not that I've endorsed you go do that, but there was this one moment that really did give me a picture of this very scene, of the judgment to come. And there's these people on a reality show, and you know they're being filmed all the time. It's like people forget you're being filmed all the time. So they say things about people, and you know they have conversations, and later on someone comes to them like, did you say this about me? And they're like, no. Like, I didn't say that. Let's go clear this up right now. Let's go clear this up. Like, I didn't say that. That never happened. And it happens all the time, every show. It's like they forget they're being filmed. And anyway, they did this thing, amazing really, called movie night. What do you think that entails? That entails everyone sat around watching the big screen, and guess what happens? They put up lots of key moments for everyone to see. Now, you can imagine, for some, that is a very uncomfortable and embarrassing time. For others, it's like vindication. And you know they can't contain themselves. As they see something, people will pipe up like, I told you they said that. Look, and then you tried to tell me. I mean, it's a train wreck, honestly. But there is such a moment there that we can all apply to ourselves, actually. When we think God doesn't see, he sees. And there might be some moments in your life that you've been thinking, God, I wish you'd just bring some justice out on this. And it might not be today. But one day, okay, it's a little bit scary, but one day, movie night's coming, okay? How does that make us feel? It's a bit scary, isn't it? The point is that there is a day coming where God will set all things right. And even if today we're in a state of stress, of discomfort, of God, where are you in this? There is a day coming when he will fix things. And what you do now, it so matters. It so matters. You know, the meaningless, that you might think, this meaningless thing, this small, insignificant thing that I've done for someone, where is the value there in the grand scheme of things? Maybe I stop to help someone's tire, maybe I don't. What does it matter in the grand schemes of the world? But God says it matters. I see it. I see the heart. The point 3, serving others connects us to God's heart. Again, when this passage is being told, the cultural context is there. It was really quite brutal, that there was a lot of neglected, forgotten people that really were not welcome in society. And yet Jesus says this story. He knows what their thoughts would go to. And I just wonder for us if we can just take a minute, if we can be brave, just take a minute and think, in my world right now, maybe in this country or in the world, who are the people that other people don't want anything to do with? Who are the hungry? Who are the lonely? Who are the forgotten? Who are the broken? Because our King, Jesus, says, what you did for them, you did for me. And he's not saying, oh, only the Christian ones. He says, no, just the forgotten, the lonely, the broken-hearted. What you do for them, you did for me. If we're being honest, we could probably all think of someone we know personally, or groups of people that the world right now perhaps want nothing to do with. What we do for them, we do for him. Serving isn't just about meeting needs. How we treat the broken, the vulnerable, the neglected, it has a direct effect on our connection and relationship with Jesus. Have we ever thought about it in those terms? When I serve someone else, actually, it helps my relationship with God. It strengthens my relationship with God. It gives me more perspective. It gives me eyes to see like he saw, because he is the ultimate server. He has all the power. He was the King of Kings. He is the King of Kings, but he came to serve. The whole mission of coming to this planet as a person and going to the cross was to rescue those who maybe didn't deserve it. Was to make a way for us where previously there was no way. Because we just weren't up to scratch. We weren't up to the standard. If we put the standard of perfection there, all of us fall short. So in his wisdom, in his glory, he came and made a way that said, I am paying the price. You can come freely into this kingdom, into this covenant. But don't forget to be a blessing to someone else on the way. What you did for them, you did for me. You know, that it's, in a way, it's an act of worship. You know, we come and we enjoy church on a Sunday, but really the true worship is not just in here. The true devotion is not just in here. It starts out there when church is finished. It starts on the drive home. And it's tough. You know, we've got to be real. It's easy to stand up here and be like, well, this is what the perfect Christian would look like, okay? This is what the ideal Christian would look like. We know it's tough. I know it's tough because we all have those struggles. But the issue, the thing we've got to grapple with is it's not to be struggleless. It's to, in those moments of pressure, what am I going to let win? Am I going to come into the kingdom, come into the culture of the King? Or does the pressures of the world rob me of that? It's not an easy tension. It's probably not something we learn to deal with overnight. But each one of us, we can have a fresh reminder. What we do for them, we did for him, the King. You know, there's a famous quote that isn't to do with Christianity, but I just wonder if in some sense it can help. And it says this, a nation should not be judged by how it sees its highest citizens, but its lowest ones. And I think in some way, with our faith, we can bring some of that into it. You know, it's not on our best day when we're high on the mountain. Sometimes it can be when we feel in our lowest place, in our weakest place, but that is when the most of Jesus can come out of each one of us. Does that make sense? We don't need to be perfect. We don't need to be the strongest or the greatest, but we just need to be willing. If we can just make a statement in our heart and say, God, I am willing, then that is a powerful place to be. What we do for them, we did for him. And perhaps this is just the idealistic side of me, but I wonder, I want you to picture right now, what do you think the world would look like if every instance of greed was replaced with selflessness right now? Let's just say magically, you know, God just clicks his fingers. What would the world look like right now if every instance of pride was replaced with humility? Do you think it would look different? Do you think people would be different? The structure of society would be different. See, there's a reason when God came, he didn't combat hate with hate. He had to bring love, to be that sacrifice, because he knew when you fight hate with hate, even though it makes sense from a worldly point of view and it feels natural, is ultimately that will only perpetuate the cycle. And we might not be strong enough, we might not be the ultimate sacrifice, but he brings a love that changes people, that can change society. But we've got to be open and willing. Is that okay? We're going to go into communion in a moment.